Monteagle, February 7th, 2023, Planning Commission meeting. Richard Black.
Here.
Dan Sargent.
Here.
Dan Brown. No. Alec Mosley. No. Katie Trahan.
Here.
Greg Rollins.
Here.
Greg Bluth.
Here.
Ed Provo. All right. Moving right along here. Andy's billboard request. We just had comments from Nate on his opinion that it is a regional development issue. Oh, excuse me, I forgot the minutes. Thank you. Can I get a vote on amendment of the minute approval?
I'll make such a motion.
All right, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendments are the adopted minutes from the last meeting. Now the billboard request that Andy put out.
That was just on the workshop, but I think Nate's right that he could make a case to the BZA to count as a regional tourism development sign.
Yes.
And as an off-premise sign, and I just need to look into that more.
Who will relay that to him?
I don't have his contact information, but maybe the mayor does. Do you have his contact?
I can get it.
Okay, I will make a note to get it from you.
All right, old business. Building permit expiration zoning code amendment that Nate and I spoke about. We have developed that document. We have some final, basically, definitions of what exactly we're talking about here as to how you determine the amount of money. That we need to add to that to make it enforceable, I think. And Nate and I agreed that we would bring that back up at the next meeting complete for review and a vote to pass on. Okay?
And my recommendation was to send it to Sam Elliott once the final draft has been made.
Correct.
To review.
Correct, and I agree with that on the final draft. 740 West Main.
What point of information on that?
Sure.
Is that going to be in conjunction with International Building Code, which the town adopted, and our own codes, or is it separate?
It is a separate document. It is not tied into zoning or the building code that we adopted.
Because the International Building Code does dictate
It
permits.
has its language, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Basically, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's a document that gives a developer 12 months to meet certain commitments on progress on his job. The definitions we need to add is what is that 10%, for instance, that he has to show. It can be 5% of design costs, engineering, architectural costs, and it can be 5% of construction. Cannot be stored materials. At the end of 12 months, that individual, organization comes before the inspector, and he has the right to extend it 6 more months if the
International Building Code is 90 days.
But we're not talking about international.
Well, then you're going to have a conflict of, since you adopted International Building Code, now your new
We're not
ordinance is
adopting it
conflict.
as a building code.
Okay.
Okay, it is not tied to our zoning or building code. What we're doing is creating a local law that to put in place that says you can't walk on the job site and sit on it for 2 years and not do anything. That you need to show progress, that's what we want. Now, it may get challenged, I don't know, but I'm gonna put my name on it and we're gonna try to push it through. 740 West Main Street convenience store. We're going to take a vote on that, all right? So, Tanya, comments?
So like Nate just refreshed us, something that needs to happen before the site plan is approved is that 30-foot setback needs to be addressed with a change in the zoning ordinance. Which since that is a process, that would allow them to put together their engineering plans. And in our meeting in January, we had discussed that you knew that it would not be approved at this meeting. We wanted to present your proposed modifications to the zoning ordinance and any additions to your site plan. So this was the next step. was to do those changes to the zoning ordinance, and then at the next time, once those changes have been put through, and the site plan, the engineering plans have been submitted, then you could approve it subject to the BZA approval, and then it would go through the BZA. So there's a few hoops that it still needs to jump through.
So you should,
Actually, you could, as a committee, approve it, but then follow up with changing the ordinance. The only reason we're changing the
Typically
ordinance.
allowed.
What are we being asked? I mean, it's 30 foot now, right?
Yeah.
On the
Yeah.
backside, not on the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I think the only concern's
What are we being
about-
asked to change it? I mean, what is, are y'all asking, do we take out the setback and back in the ordinance altogether?
Yeah, I mean, the reason is, my question is, I mean, any station you look at right now, they don't have no backside loading or unloading right now, because none of the properties, or none of the commercial properties right now, look at Pilot, look at McDonald's, or Napco, Circle K, anybody right now, that have no backside loading and unloading at all, period.
Anya, once again, you think that we should not vote at this time. You think that we should go through the process of having it submit to the BZA before we accept their
No.
site plan, or we wait for their engineering to complete?
We would have to recommend a change to the zoning ordinance first to city council. Then after 2 meetings, it goes through, you would review the site plan again with the engineering plan submitted, as required by your zoning ordinance, and then it would go before the BZA, be granted the variance.
The engineering plan that needs to be submitted.
Yes, because as stated, sewer, water, sidelines, and full stormwater plans need to be submitted with your site plan.
My question would be, there's existing already water and sewer already over there.
Right.
So why do we need to go through engineering plans anyway?
And storm drainage, that popped in my mind, was there no storm drain, I thought you showed some storm
Yeah, the
drainage.
water lines, the sewer lines, and the stormwater lines are all shown on this plan where those exist. We don't have details on the connections or the size. That will be done, but that's not something we have to do now.
In Monteagle, it is. It's what's required in the site plan component.
But then, then you're looking at, we're basically back and forth, this is, I mean, we've been here back and forth all the time. I mean, you're basically, I'm coming back with something, and then you're saying, okay, we need this done, and, I'm coming with something else, and you're saying this.
But it's been the same thing.
No, it's not. Okay, first it was something, tax zones first, now you're asking something different.
It's been the same thing for a while now.
I think the setback has been in here all along, because.
I know, that's what, which we've been working on with you guys, with everybody, we even asked for it before. It's not like we are expecting that to be changed right away, but we'll work on that. We're not saying we'll not work on it. But what I'm saying is, you guys are pushing us back where we are just, back to square one, rather than, at least give us some kind of approval where we can start the process of something.
The problem is the zoning ordinance itself, it conflicts in multiple areas. This
It
is
does.
just 2 or 3 that we're tripping over on this project. I would say, long-term, you need to look at this and compare it to other similar ordinances. Here, in this particular one, in the chart that gives C1 to C4 industrial, it tells you what the setbacks are, and we conform with that. And then somewhere else, later in the ordinance, it shows that everyone has to have the 30-foot setback. Why was that? I don't know, but it shouldn't be. It should be taken out and used selectively for something that fits what that written for. And typically, like I said, it would be for larger buildings where you want to certainly separate for safety's sake, semis running into people going in the front door. I mean, that's not good, but that's not what this is a convenience store, a very small convenience store. And I think we can help you to make your zoning ordinance a better and more, less controversial thing that we've run into in this. And again, this isn't the only thing, there are other things too, we just.
Oh, we're painfully aware of that.
I'd like to make a quick comment.
Okay, go right ahead.
Zoning ordinance, the section 1008 that talks about the site plan content. It says the planning commission may require missing items to be added or other corrections to be made as a condition for approval.
I'm aware of that.
So if we're missing something that you generally approve the site plan, it seems like you can approve that with condition, right?
We've been chasing our tail on this for 8 months, all right? I want to vote on this. I want to know where my fellow commissioners stand. It's not going to go anywhere until you get the BCA change on that, but we are adding things to our list every month and not taking anything off, and we're going backwards here. So, could I ask someone to put forth a vote on this?
Can I ask, on the back, I just want clarity here, is it just one lane of traffic?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the back of this is the back of your property?
Correct.
Property line. What is the distance, I don't see a marker, what is the distance
I
from
think
the
it's
back of
12
the building
feet.
to the back of, to your property?
It's 12 feet roughly.
I mean,
12 feet, I think.
12 feet? So that's enough room for one vehicle, I guess? Are there, how many drive-through windows are there?
There's 2 drive-through windows, but one's going back around and one's going in and out, that's it.
Okay, so the one on the right, which I would think would be the west side, is going all the way around, I assume.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's 16 feet behind the building, a 12-foot, a 12-foot drive, and then a 4-foot landscape island behind the building. And then there's the drive-through lane on either side.
Do we hear a motion to vote?
But I mean, the adjoining property that's behind you, I mean, does that property have any setbacks, I mean, at all? I mean, you're gonna be building
They've
up
got
to-
a
you're gonna be
retainer
building up
wall
that
about
property
6
line.
feet high, don't you?
No, we don't have a retaining wall, but there's a steep.
Just a steep road?
Yeah, it's a big steep actually.
All right.
So we're not gonna go further than that.
Just a bank.
Yeah.
Your building is gonna be within 12 foot of the property.
16 feet actually, sorry. I
It
didn't know
is,
exactly.
it is.
16 feet, yes.
You said the driveway is only 12 feet? You
No,
know,
16 feet.
16 feet.
I was estimating it because based on, he has more calculation than I do because he's an architectural person, I'm not, but based on my personal view, it's 12 feet. But there's not gonna be like, you could have a turnaround. Only thing is you need a 9 feet lane actually to go through, you don't need more than 9 feet. I'm not talking about, there's a side block on top. Like there's a building, then there's a side block of 4 feet too. Then there's a 16 feet difference between the property line.
And one last question for me. Do you have an idea of where the electrical service will be coming in for this
It's
facility?
gonna be underground mostly.
Okay.
The property behind us, that will have their frontage on Oak Circle Drive, their side yard setback is gonna be 10 feet.
Utilities are already there.
Helps to
Yeah.
clarify, but. So,
I mean, like I
In order-
said, if I didn't tear that building up, let's say I put that store back up again, then you guys wouldn't have problems. Then you just would say, okay,
and our request
We
is.
can make it wrong. Motion to vote,
I'll make a motion to vote.
second,
No,
I'll second it.
what's the motion?
Yeah,
With
to
the
accept the
conditions.
site plan as submitted with notes that were,
I thought we were just gonna,
Contingent?
I just thought we were gonna make a motion to vote on changing the ordinance.
No, Now, we're
Could
making a
I,
motion.
So, I would like to interject.
Go.
So I just wanna have it on the record also, that there's no guarantee that those changes to zoning ordinance would ever be made, because you're just doing a recommendation. And if they have to wait anyway for those changes to be made, there's no reason why it can't be denied until those changes are made. And then some of the engineering required is still part of the site plan process. So as it stands today, site team.
The engineering that is missing on the site plan is storm drainage, existing water and sewer.
Yeah.
What else would you want on that?
Those are the things that we need to have clearly stated on the site plan, as required by, you've required this of other site plans, so.
And the locations are shown on the site plan, we just don't have the size of the existing. Then you could deny the motion, but you could also accept it with conditions to give the owner good faith to start putting additional money into engineering drawings, knowing that you guys are tentatively in favor of where this is going, to help.
And it's still on contingent on BZA approval of changing that zoning, which,
Yeah.
It's all in a conditional motion
Right.
being made.
So my question would be, so if you have already existing sewer and water already there,
Right.
my question would be, what else you guys are expecting us to do from that point of view? Because we can't take a line from basically our property all the way to because it's a pump station basically. So my question would be, it's a 6-inch line, I know for fact sure. I don't know how big you guys wanna go there, you get what I'm saying, right?
yeah.
Well, we can go over the engineering drawings.
I mean,
The city will need to work with you on
We'll do that.
locating
Right.
everything, that's pertaining to the store and the building as a whole. The city will have to locate those things. We know they're there. A building was there before.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
fully functioned. So, Anya, I tell you, I just got a real issue with this, requirement for an engineering report when the engineering has already been done, for a building that was there before.
Exactly.
Why would we have to require that when there was a building there before? And the man spent his good money to take that building down so he could build something else.
I mean, I'm trying to build something beautiful.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to keep something
If
safe.
it's as pretty as this picture, we're
Exactly.
gonna have to require something else around you.
I want this out of the commission. It needs to move on. And it moves on with
Motion's on the
contingencies.
floor.
It moves on with the contingency that BZA must pass their request for revision of the zoning, and that the engineering drawings will be submitted for review with the proper parties in the town.
So if the council doesn't approve whatever,
It doesn't matter. They'll have to come back to us, won't they?
So there's 3 conditions.
No, only 2 conditions.
The 3 that I have are the engineering plans are submitted, the BZA must pass the variance for the 40-foot setback, and, a zoning ordinance amendments must be made on the 30-foot setback, which you could do as.
Where'd that,
Hold
wait a
on,
minute.
hold on, what is the
That's
40-foot?
What was 40 foot? I don't remember that.
The 40-foot setback is required on all sides of the right-of-way. A variance could be granted due to the particular difficulty that this parcel is surrounded by right-of-way on all 3 sides.
So there's no right of way on all 3 sides. That 2 sides of the streets are dead end.
Oh, but I already mentioned this in the workshop, and we discussed this in full in January, so this was not a surprise.
That's the variance for, yeah, that's the variance for
So
Oak
there's
Circle.
3
Damn, I thought I was here.
conditions.
Okay, yeah, we recognize that one.
What's your comment on that?
We have a very small site, and the setback
you
is
do.
40 foot, and we have street frontage on 3 sides of our site. and
Right.
We are grossly over restricted from the 40-foot setback, so we're gonna seek the variance to
Because you're
to
looking
have
at
that
40 feet,
setback
40 feet, 40 feet.
eliminated or removed on
There's
Oak
nothing
Circle
left
side.
there.
So you're gonna be asking the BZA to look at 2 provisions then,
Correct.
No, just 1.
30 and 40.
One
Is that-
revision for for the variance for the setback on the Oak Circle side.
Yeah.
But the other one is going to be an amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow us to put our service drive on the side instead of on the rear.
Okay. Is that motion vote? Did I get a second?
What's the motion again?
Got one. Mayor second.
So we've got a second on that. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
No.
Ayes have it. We're going to move this to the council with the noted acts that must happen for approval. If for any reason the BCA does not approve the changes, you'll be back here with this again, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Sidebar, Commissioner, on what Dan is talking about, I mean, I agree with what he's saying. It's not Anya's fault. I mean, she's just keeping
Right.
us in line.
Sure.
But maybe that's something the council could look at, and because that's what the ordinance says.
It does, you're right.
So maybe that's something, we've got some commissioners in there, council people, so
Correct.
maybe that could be an agenda item for them. Maybe would help us.
I agree, and that's my biggest issue is making sure that we're treating everybody the same, and with that being what the
Yeah.
ordinance is, I don't feel real comfortable.
Yeah.
So my question would be, if you're treating everybody the same, then you gotta enforce the law to everybody at the same time. Because if I get like I said, if I get the existing building there, then you wouldn't have to force me to do any of those parts right now, what I'm trying to do.
You wouldn't be here then.
Then I won't have to worry about it.
Right.
But I'm trying to build something more beautiful at the same time, rather than, keeping an existing building there, which would look like a junk, which is already there. I mean, you could ask anybody right now here, and they already said it. I mean, if I recall it from a couple meetings ago, they said it looks like a dog shit right now over there, and that's out of the street. Am I right or wrong?
No, I agree with that.
I think
And
we
we're,
all agree
I
with
mean,
that.
I'm frustrated. Only reason I'm frustrated is because I've been in this meeting since July. I'm
Exactly.
just getting frustrated now because, I'm just getting back and forth, because the ordinance says something, then there's something else coming up. I'm just getting, frustrated now. I'm patient enough to go with everything. I work with Mr. Mayor. I've been patient with, everything else. But I'm just saying is, if you're not gonna agree with something, then I'm just gonna, get aggravated. I'm gonna just let it happen. But, I'm just saying, you guys gotta help us out. We're gonna help you out at the same time.
understand that if we waited for changes in the zoning law, you're talking about another 3 meetings.
Yeah.
All right? That's what we're trying to avoid here, okay?
I'm trying to.
So at least you can move ahead. I can't speak for the BZA, but they've got issues to address, and I think we've got issues to address to bring these codes up to snuff.
That's right.
All right? Further comments? We'll move on. Hideaway residential subdivision. Welcome back.
We had another meeting back here and
Yeah.
speaking about some of the kind of the concerns. There's a number of concerns, and I guess I'd like to go through them kind of one at a time.
Please do.
Can we use the microphone?
Yeah, I can't.
Go ahead.
So I guess the first concern we'd like to kind of talk about and address is the stopping sight distance, being 200 feet. We're willing to, one thing you mentioned was kind of work with us a little bit on this.
Yeah.
So-
Microphone's not working.
That's all right.
Speaker working? Can you guys hear me?
No.
Just yell, how about that?
Try that.
I guess you guys are recording, huh? So yeah, in the effort to work with you guys, like you mentioned, we're willing to
meet that requirement for 200 feet for stopping sight distance, which is basically a 30-mile-per-hour road on the vertical curves of the road. So we're willing to meet that condition on this and hopefully quell your guys' concern with that. The next thing we wanted to bring up was we heard someone mention turn lane into the development. And we were actually unclear about the turn lane, if that was meant to infer turning into the development from the public right-of-way, or if that's turning out of the development. Could somebody clarify what the...
Turning in.
So turning in
Right.
US
Turning in
41?
only. I don't care if it slows down your residents, I don't want it slowing down traffic on the road.
Understood. So as a part of the traffic study, we analyzed the turn lanes, and through TDOT's requirements and their criteria and the way that they do their traffic studies, that is not needed. It's not remotely close to being needed on Wren's Nest or US 41. But we are willing to allow enough queuing space in our access to the public right-of-way to allow cars to get out of the main roadway and allow safe passage on US 41 and Wren's Nest. So I think that was one thing we agreed upon last meeting, was allowing, cars to queue. So we can meet that. We provide over. You have something to add?
I was going to say, just point out that on 41, 114 feet.
Yeah.
Much more than expected.
Yeah, so on our access to US 41, we've got 114 feet that we can use to store easily 4 or 5 vehicles. So in Wren's Nest, it's much longer than that, so there's really no issues there.
Okay.
The next issue that keeps being brought up is the traffic. As a licensed professional, it's I hear a lot of we need to fact check this, we need to fact check that. We went through the traffic study per the TDOT requirements in their traffic design manual. We used their data for a lot of it. We used, our data when we got hard counts in person. And frankly, my professional stamp certifies that study was done, with no ethical breaches. I'm putting my career on the line essentially when I stamp a document saying this is the truth, this was done according to the manual. And so there's not much more I can do to make you believe other than the fact that we performed this, and TDOT has given us conditional approval. And the only approval that would need to come after that conditional approval is they would need to see construction plans for where we tie into the public right-of-way. So then they give us full approval once they get, they see those plans and can certify those plans. And so the last thing was the sewer fee that we just got. That was something we wanted to ask more questions about. We were kind of caught off guard with that, and we wanted to kind of hear more about what that entails.
From our understanding, that would be a fee that would be passed on to the homeowner. Is that correct?
I believe so, but I double check that with Travis.
Is
so
it?
Who generates who comes up with what the fee is, and what are you trying to, what is the point of, what are you trying to recoup?
I guess as an impact fee, you're usually recouping or paying back something with an impact fee, and I guess where is that written in code that that's a requirement?
Or the maintenance agreement going forward, not, as I say, I want to double check that with Travis.
Okay.
On engineering, as he authored that memo. That was his understanding.
That it's a homeowner cost and not a developer cost.
And I don't know.
It didn't be that yet. And it was not an impact fee per se.
No.
We honestly didn't clearly understand who was going to determine that fee and what use it was going to.
Well, I guess we would ask.
We have a structure that works inside the city limits that people that are on sewer have a different fee in connection to their water service. They
Right.
also pay an additional amount for sewage.
Right.
So wouldn't this fall in the same category?
I don't know.
I don't want to comment on engineering.
Okay, well,
I'll try to get you an answer tomorrow.
okay, well, we just would not like for that, just to be
Refer-
treated like everybody else.
Where is your engineer tonight?
Excuse me?
Where is your engineer tonight? Why ain't he here?
He couldn't make tonight's
I mean,
meeting.
he couldn't make it for the last 3 months.
I don't know his schedule, but
You know,
he couldn't make
we're
it tonight.
here. We put the application in. He knows that this is the issue, is the sewer. You know, why isn't he here? I mean, if we're gonna be put off, if we're gonna be put off again, and it's because of the sewer, because he's not here to answer a question, you know, that's concerning.
We're here too, and yes, I requested, yesterday, that we try to get him, and he was out of town, I was told. So, yes, we want him here. He has questions he needs to answer, and we requested, but he was not able to make it.
I mean, this is, he hadn't been here, and I've been here every month for what, last 3 months, and we hadn't seen him any.
I think it's fair to say, though, the parties have met, and there just seems to be some confusion on one of the points of his memo.
It was, and it seems to be a minor point, honestly, and I don't think it should be a condition upon approval or denial for this preliminary plat, but did catch us off guard because I do not recall, I don't have in my notes talking about that. I do know the maintenance agreement, and we were on the same page there, but the fee just was something we hadn't heard. And so
I agree, that should not be an issue for discussion tonight. That caught us off guard a little bit. We need to get some answers either, but I don't think it should come into evaluation on vote.
thank you. And, we can sort these details out
Right.
during final plat approval.
Okay?
I would just say in closing that we have an R1 site and we have an R1 site plan. If anybody else comes in with a proposal, it's gonna look a lot like this, okay? It's not gonna change. You're gonna have the lots that you can get, you're gonna have 2 entrances, and you're gonna do the things that we've done. And it meets the zoning requirements. We've coordinated, made every effort that we could to meet with you guys and answer all your questions. And I think that we have pushed this thing down the road to where we are in a position to get your approval tonight.
Anya, comments?
So if you approve, you would have to approve subject to, the PC, or you'd have to grant the variance for the alternative design on the
No,
site.
There would be
no,
no-
We removed that issue.
We took that off.
I mean, we think it's a better design with the
Oh.
variance, but
Oh, you took it,
we've
okay.
relinquished that in an effort to meet with you guys and quell some of these concerns.
Okay, so
and
that
get
is
this pushed through.
changing on the preliminary.
Correct.
Any other-
It's a technical issue. It does not change the road alignment.
Right,
From
okay,
it's
so
just-
I just missed that then.
Okay.
So you're changing that,
Yes, that was a
And-
development from the workshop to this meeting.
okay.
That one
So
bothers me.
then
Thank you.
maybe the motion needs to be set as subject to, during the final plat, any concerns with sewer, with the sewer maintenance agreement is dealt with. I guess what his wording would be, we would just say, subject to Travis Wilson's points being addressed.
Correct.
Good. Yeah. We were on the same page, and our meeting went really well, I thought, and we were on the same page, so I think.
Commissioners, comments? Motion to vote?
Quick comment, and we, public lies and.
1 second.
Mr. Chairman, I still have concerns. I don't think the gentleman has, he talked about fact checking and traffic studies. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be a negative impact having that entrance along Eagle Cliff Road. And I just don't understand why that entrance can't be taken out. And the main entrance to this property come in on Dixie Highway on 41. I just don't see how that, why, I don't see why the property has to have 2 entrances.
In most jurisdictions, projects of this size would have 2 entrances. In fact, there are a lot of cities that have ordinances that say you get above a certain number of lots, you gotta have 2 entrances. You know, we added the second entrance on 41 to alleviate the questions that you guys had about the entrance on Wren's Nest. I'd also remind you that, you know, this piece of property, you know, Wren's Nest Road actually right now technically bisects the Harton tract of property. It's all in the same tax parcel in this minute. So, you know, denying us access to the public road that actually bisects the property is not, I mean, it's not practical. It's also, I mean, it's just not right. So, I mean, we, like they've said, we presented you a fully compliant R1 subdivision with no variances needed. And, you know, we would appreciate getting approval from the preliminary plat so we can move forward with a very expensive project that is going to take a lot. I mean, there's a lot more engineering work that goes on before we can even turn a spade. So,
thank you. Comments from the public?
Quickly, so I appreciate the fact that they feel like they have come forward and complied with all the requirements for R1, for R1 development and all that, so that's fine. It's still up to the city, planning commission as well as the city council to decide what's gonna happen in our city, right? You still have that leverage, you still have that authority. A couple things I would like to, the TDOT approval that you were talking about is for 41 only. Who would be giving the approvals? Is it the city of Monteagle, since it's I guess it's a city-owned road for Wren's Nest Avenue, for that access to be granted? It's not gonna be TDOT as far as unless they need to go get TDOT approval for the Wren's Nest access side. So who would be the approval authority for the access to Wren's Nest Avenue? And I agree 100%, why can't we just, given the considerations that we've talked about at the entrance of Wren's Nest Avenue and 41 over there by, where McDonald's and Sonic is, and the cluster that is on a daily basis, why not just give them the single access over on 41 instead of the access onto Wren's Nest Avenue? I agree there should be only a single access. I do not believe Wren's Nest Road is capable of handling the traffic coming in and out of there on a weekend like this would be. So I would ask who has the authority to say yes or no on Wren's Nest Avenue, giving them access. When you mentioned that the road transects the parcel property, that's partially true, but it transects a part that's being developed and a part that's not even considered for development right now. So it's not like we're coming through the middle of their site plan right now and transecting the property line. So that's a little bit of a non-issue right here. I think you would have the authority, somebody should have the authority to say yes or no to access on Wren's Nest Avenue. And I would recommend that do we have a copy of the traffic study that was done?
Their traffic study, yes, we reviewed it.
You've got a copy of it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's my thing on the access to Wren's Nest Avenue. I think the city should be able to consider that and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down as part of either the approval tonight or for pushing this a little bit further down. The other thing I would like to ask, and I don't know if this is out of line or not, maybe this should go to the council, but who's financially responsible for this development during its development? Do we have a sense of, the Harden family owns the property. I assume Tom he's not the developer, he's a broker of some kind, so I'm curious on who has financial responsibility for the development to ensure that we're not gonna get a portion of the way through a clearing or anything like that before financial responsibility kind of falls apart if they don't sell enough lots or et cetera.
First of all, I'm a partner in the development group with the Hardens. Your code is pretty clear on that, who is responsible financially. Once you get preliminary plat approval, then it's our responsibility to go build the subdivision. We can't get a final plat until we've built it or put up a bond for the equivalent amount to do. So it's the developer's job and responsibility financially by y'all's code and most codes everywhere to do it. We can't sell a lot until we get a final.
It is not this commission's responsibility to do that. I think that would probably fall on the council. What I want this commission to do is to stand you against the wall, clean you up, get you within our requirements, and to get what we can out of you and pass it on to the council for determination. That's what I think our job is, so.
Their preliminary plat would not go before the council.
No, but our approval and their vote on it does, on them proceeding.
No.
The council doesn't vote on this?
No.
When they leave our
No.
jurisdiction, there's nothing
No.
following
The
us?
planning commission has full jurisdiction on plats.
Well, that's weird.
They, no.
That's state code.
Is it? Okay. Live and learn. Other comments from the public? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've lived across the street from that piece of property for over 20 years. My family's been there over 35. And I can tell you, whatever the traffic study is, it's wrong, because that road is crazy on any given day, or 41, I'm talking about 41. Any given day, if there's any kind of problem on I-24, that road becomes a nightmare. And it's a twisty, windy road, and there's semis going up and down it. Nobody pays attention to the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign coming into Monteagle. There's motorcycles every nice weekend that are racing up and down that road over 100 miles an hour. I've complained to, it's mostly a county problem, because most of that road is in the county. It's a terrible road, but the interstate problem is so unpredictable. You don't know from one day to the next when there's going to be a major influx of traffic on 41 going either direction, either going toward Pelham or coming from Pelham. And that's because of all the traffic apps and whatnot that redirect traffic when there's a problem on 24. It can be backed up from Main Street in Monteagle all the way to the bottom of the mountain going toward Pelham for hours, bumper to bumper for hours. I've lived with it for years. And so, and the bigger part of the problem is the intersection of East Main and 41, because it's a terrible intersection to begin with, because of the curve right there around the Depot Deli. When people get backed up going down or back down the mountain, it's just dangerous on a good day. You add who knows how many more people coming out of there on a regular basis, add in a problem on 24, and you've got a disaster for traffic.
Thank you. Further comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Lester?
My name is Joe Lester. I'm with the Harton family in Tullahoma. Been with them 45 years. What we primarily do is we develop residential subdivisions. Been through it many times down in the valley down there. The Harton family cannot put their name on a project that's done halfway. We cannot do it. We've talked about the property several years that we have here at Monteagle, and we thought, well, man, this would be a great opportunity to do something first class in the city. We're not going in, we're doing paved roads, we're doing a gated community. It's going to be something that you're proud of. It's going to go on your tax roll, and it's going to be something you're going to be proud of. Now, to address your question about the financial stability, I don't think you're going to have any problem with the financial stability of the Harton family. We're going to make it right, and we're going to do it first class, okay? Number two, let's talk about the interest on Lynn Road. In Tullahoma, we've got a subdivision on Lake Tullahoma, inside the city of Tullahoma. It's got 83 lots in it. We've just finished all the engineering study. We're waiting on the weather to break to put the bulldozer in there to put the road in there. We have an ordinance in Tullahoma that if the subdivision has 30 lots or more, for safety purposes, you have to have 2 egresses and 2 ingresses. And that makes sense. Now, for example, ice storm. blocks the way for the fire trucks to get in, the city can be responsible and take a lawsuit on it. That's the reason you have two egresses and ingresses. As you began to talk about 41 when the interstate closes down, man, things happen all the time. Another way to get in the subdivision, another way to get out. The young lady back there in the back talks about I'm the second or third house on Wren's Nest Road, next to two houses we have. We want this to look good. We want it to be right. We're talking 80 lots in this development. My gosh. Let me assure you, the homeowner association will do the best they can to keep the noise down, to keep the problem down. Don't envision it as just a bunch of houses that are rental. We're going to do something nice, and if not, I'm going to be in the middle of it. I want to do something that this town's proud of. And who knows, other things may spin off from this. But we want to work with y'all any way we can. We want to do a project that gets on your tax roll and helps our little community up here. And we in it together. Let me understand. I've done this 45 years with my father-in-law, who did it for 40 years with Mr. Harden. And it's just, we want to do it right. We're not going to clear cut the property. We're going to leave the trees in there as many as we can. The issue on the angle of the road and the 30-mile speed limit, if we have to go in and take an astronomical amount of field dirt to make those angles less, it just costs us another $150,000, and we'll bear that expense. But I thought the uniqueness would be to follow the contour of the ground, leave the trees where they are, right through Cooley's Rift. It's pretty unique. But anyway, that was where we were going to ask for the variance, and we pulled that off the table because we need to get this project going or get off the horse, okay? But we in this boat together.
Thank you, Mr. Lapp. Further comments?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hartman, thank you for your comments. You talked about the property needing two entrances. We have a number of subdivisions here, gated subdivisions, on the mountain, and just about all of them have one entrance, one exit. So what I am suggesting is that you have an entrance to the property that's not negatively impacting your neighbors.
Well, that's a good point. If we only go with one entrance on 41, you save me some money not having to do an entrance on this road. I just gave you a reason that the city ordinance in Tullahoma says if it's a subdivision over 30 lots, for safety purposes, you have to have two egress and entry. I cannot get around that. So knock out the Wren Nest Road entrance and you save me $100,000.
I mean, you still accomplish the same thing just by having a fire gate there.
I'm sorry?
You could have a gate there for emergency access and egress from that standpoint.
Well, if you do away with the Wren Nest Road entrance, I mean, there won't be a gate there, will it? Won't be a road. Yeah, it's not gonna be a road, so that's a safety, it's a big deal, and it's a big deal.
Well, the other gated communities also are much more acreage. So I could see why they have room to move around back in there and, Cliff Tops is how many thousands of acres? What we're talking, 40 acres, 45 acres?
40,
here?
50 acres. 50, right, 50.
Well,
I don't have a problem with the entrances either way.
Both those subdivisions, it was a practical thing. If you look at the piece of land, they didn't have a way to do another road. Cooley's Rip, in theory, could have gone out Fire Tower Road, but you didn't have another road that Cliff Tops could go out onto. Right. And both of those predated also y'all's codes. So if you look at Cooley's, your comments earlier about Cooley's, their roads, none of their roads meet any of your codes. They don't even meet state codes. I went out there and measured today. It's a 17-foot wide road. I mean, it's scary going down that road at 20 miles an hour. And then it's got those huge crazy dips and blind curves. We're not going to have any of that. We got a standard width road, plenty of room for everybody.
One more thing. Go back to Dean Lay's comment earlier. We gave you the property to take that kink out of Wren's Nest Road in there behind McDonald's. Nobody's ever taken advantage of it. Merry Christmas is yours. Let's straighten that road out. Let's beef that road up. It needs it. It's always needed it. That's probably been 18, 20 years ago, Andy.
Well, 14.
Well, 14.
Commissioners, we vote. Find out where we stand on this.
You'll need a motion.
I need a motion, yes. Can I get a motion?
Yeah. I made the last one.
We just made a motion to vote on
The site plan as presented.
Site.
And then we can have discussion on the motion.
Yeah.
Were there any other conditions or notes to this site plan? Nothing about,
The one issue
Sorry,
that
on this plot,
Anya brought up has been addressed.
Well, also subject to Travis Wilson's,
Right.
sewer
Right.
concerns being addressed in the final.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna put a motion on the table to vote on the site plan as noted with approval from Travis and his discussions with that. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
well, there's discussion on the motion,
Go ahead.
right? I have a quick question on this Wren's Nest issue. Is there any way to move the exit up or down Wren's Nest to alleviate any kind of traffic, from future development and perhaps present situations?
Move it up or down, the access up or down along that road.
Along Wren's Nest Road,
You know about taking this and sliding it this way?
wherever may be convenient for better traffic flow.
We have it positioned from a topo standpoint where it makes the most sense to come into the property from a grade standpoint.
Topo, I
That's
understand.
one point. The other point is it's the furthest point away from Main Street. So, we're more than 2,000 feet away. It's in the best spot it can be.
And I mean, through final platter, you know, we're gonna submit our construction documents to Travis Wilson for his review. And so at that time, if there were something that he saw as a concern, then we could address that.
Minor tweaks, widening the throat or whatever, we would, of course, do to comply with those.
So we can.
That's fine then. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna do a roll call vote on this one. Okay? Richard Black. Dan Sargent.
Yes.
Dan Brown's not here, Alex Loveland not, Katie Trahan. Take a deep breath.
No.
Greg Rollins.
no.
Mayor Malou.
Yes?
Ed Provo, yes. How'd you come out on that, Debbie?
3 yeses, 3 noes.
Split down the middle.
Present? Is there a quorum present?
I'm sorry, let's say
Is there
again.
a quorum present?
Yes, we have a quorum. We have 2 missing, and it's a tie vote, 3-3. I don't know what to do about that.
Have a discussion of what's hanging people up?
I think we do.
Do what?
Have a discussion about what's hanging people up?
I think we do. I think we need to find out what the issues are, and we need to document those issues and present them to these people and see what we can do with them. Agreed?
Yep.
All right.
For me, my biggest concern is the Wren's Nest entrance and concern about the traffic, and I guess maybe being more specific on your part about how many cars could come in and what kind of alleviation there will be for that traffic coming in there.
So,
At this time, we're not gonna.
no response at this time, thank you.
But
We're
that's
going to
what
clearly,
I-
yes, we're clearly going to define what these concerns are and put them on paper to you, all right? You went from 8-zip to 3-3, that's good progress. Thank you. Now, Anya, how do we move ahead on that? Any ideas?
I'm trying to look up what happened. So.
Okay.
I did want to say that, so I've been discussing it with my planner or director, and he says it's not a bad idea for extra access, but also you could prevent Wren's Nest from being used and just have them have one entrance, a US 41 at that.
So commissioners, I'm gonna reach out to each of you by email and ask for your response on this. What it is that you think would help us push this over the top and make it work. Fair enough?
Yeah, I would suggest because of sunshine law, maybe it should be done through me.
It should be done in a meeting, not by email between the commissioners.
Yeah. It
Oh,
should be
you're
done through
included on
me.
this, yeah. Okay. All right. So, do we table it?
No.
So you'd have, if you tabled it, it would be because you don't have enough information about access to the roads.
And my understanding of tabling it would have to be resolved during this meeting. So would it be better to postpone to a special called meeting if necessary?
What
We got
tabling
into
will do,
table it, postpone.
it will force us to make a decision at the next meeting, does it not?
That's not my understanding of tabling versus postponing. And we had that discussion on another matter.
Yeah, we did.
And that's for site plan. So last meeting in January, it was denied, correct?
They resubmitted. Good time vote.
I need some more time to look up what happens in a tie. So if you do that for me, and we could move on to maybe discussing other agenda items.
All right.
Well, can I just ask one question,
Sure.
kind of off the record? Mr. Lester, will you be in your office tomorrow morning?
I will.
Thank you. I would like to have some conversation briefly. Thank you.
Thank you again, fellas. All right.
So a vote will be made at the end of this meeting, right? So I can have more time to figure
A
out.
vote will be
A
made?
vote will be, or, you know, could we have a tie, we need to determine what we need to do for the tie. I need more time to talk
know
to
you
my
do. We
planning
do too.
directors, figure
Yeah.
out what legally is the next
So
step.
we want to get our thoughts on paper, including to you and to them.
No, this will be done during this meeting. I just need more time, so we can go through maybe another agenda item while I look this
She
up.
needs like 30 minutes or something. Not
Yes.
time
Yeah, I know
tomorrow,
what she's
time
saying.
tonight.
Thank you.
She's not giving me time to get these comments though. You know?
Right.
I'd like to know
I
what
think it
these
is
thoughts
something
are so we can
during
share them.
this meeting.
All right, go give you 30 minutes, we're gonna move on to the next issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
asking for.
An accessory dwelling unit ordinance amendment. In our workshop, we discussed this, and there were several issues that seemed to be hampering this. You all know this now, you've heard it. It was the prospect of moving these ADUs to the front of the lot. It was the issue of a separate meter to these units. And what was the third one on?
I think those were the only two.
Those two, okay. So, discussion, commissioners?
Well,
Due to the fact that there's a lake on one side and a bluff on the other, and a lot of these lots, you know, I think we have to make an exception as to where they would put an ADU.
okay.
My thought on that point.
Okay. Mayor?
The comment I had, I think, a long time ago when we first started discussing this, that side yards are also allowed. Is that true?
Yeah, I think side,
So-
Sides are currently allowed, sides and rears.
If there's a lake on one side and a bluff on the other, or whatever the geography is, couldn't they put their ADU on the side?
Yes.
Possibly.
Would that resolve the issue?
The original proposal was just on the back, or was it back in the two sides?
Wait, say that.
The original proposal that we sent to the commission.
The original proposal
Back and
says
sides.
that the only thing, the ADUs are not permitted in the front yard.
In the front.
Between the principal dwelling unit and the front property line. So, Cooley's Rift, had asked, because a lot of their properties have houses near the bluff, could they, be looked at case by case before the BZA to allow for ADUs to be located in the front?
Well, I mean, if they're in the majority, why wouldn't the BZA work?
Why?
If they're in the minority, having to request that, I mean, the council didn't approve what we submitted tonight because of they had to put it in the back.
Yeah, yes, well, yeah. So, that is a change that you could put into this zoning ordinance, to go before the city council again, saying that you would allow, certain cases to go before the BZA.
Okay, so we didn't do that, okay, I got you.
Right, so that would be an addition. Sorry.
But does the side yard still stand?
Yes, you're allowed to have them in the side and rear setbacks.
And you could pursue the BZA, put it in front if you had extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
That sounds like a reasonable solution to that.
You can say, have a very specific provision saying that the BZA will only approve it if there isn't sufficient space in the side and the rear because of the topographical issues.
Right.
Like a block.
Do we address excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
It does.
Subject to attached and detached.
Mhm.
Would be part of their consideration, I would imagine.
I would think so too. Water meters. Comments on the issue of water meters? It's basically a black and white. Do we make them take out a new water meter and a new 3/4 line and pay those tap fees? Or do we let them feed off their existing meter?
I think to Katie's point, if it's attached, it would be served by the 1 meter. I think the issue becomes detached. And if it's considered commercial property because it's rental or not, because the resident can live in either dwelling, as I understand the ADU. So the resident can live in the smaller unit and rent out the big one, or vice versa, or the larger home. So if it's a rental situation, that I think would necessitate a separate meter. If it's attached and mother-daughter, or whatever those types of structures are called, then the 1 meter would serve both, I would imagine.
I think you still have to have the, 2 meters, because when you sell it, it might be used for a different purpose. Or your child might move out of the other unit and then you might rent it.
Point taken.
Good point. Further discussion?
I have to go with the individual meters.
Public comments? Anybody have an attitude or feeling about this? Go ahead, Dick.
I think it depends on the circumstances. There's many circumstances where it would not be practical to have 2 meters, depending on the size of it, the location adjacent to the house, and the size water line the utility has in front of your house. And out in our area, a lot of us are on a 2-inch line, and it's not gonna do a whole lot of good to put up another meter. And then I'm kinda like the people at Cooley's, I'm right on the bluff, so I can't, as much as I'd like to, put my mother-in-law behind me, I've gotta put her in front of me if I'm doing that. And the water line comes right by from the meter to my house, and it seems unrealistic for me to have to pay a tap fee and a meter fee, for my mother-in-law to live there. However, if that's what it takes for her to live there instead of with me, I can probably come up with it, but it's not practical in every case.
Go ahead.
If I'm missing something, I can't understand why the town would care whether they have 1 or 2 meters. If you're gonna rent the property, the town wants to be, if that's your motivation, it's okay.
It bothers me a little bit that we have put strict covenants on these ADUs and size of the facility, that it even requires another meter, but I think that we'll put that up to vote and decide. Okay.
Well,
Any
you're
other
gonna get
comments?
paid for the water. If I don't have to buy a meter and
You'll
there's
pay for the
extra
water
water
anyway.
used, you're being paid for the
Right.
water. If it's on sewer service, you've been paid on that. Now, like in our area, we don't have sanitary sewer, so if I do one at my property, I'm gonna have to get a septic tank and fill line to take care of
Right.
that square footage, whatever it is, with TDEC. But you will be compensated for the water that's used. Now, if I'm renting it, you're also getting motel occupancy tax.
Right.
Which is gonna generate more money than the water bill and the rest of the neighborhood. And so I think it's again, the circumstances. Is it truly, your mother-in-law that's living there and you're having to care for her, or is it something that's gonna be a revenue producing item, and gonna be rented out?
Right.
Then it should be, it should be commercial, and they should have a meter on it, I think.
I mean, do you think that you can even dig that deep into your regulations and write all those specific, foresee all those specific things in order to make the ordinance?
We haven't been very good at that yet.
If you leave it open-ended, you're gonna run into problems, and I get what you're saying, but, leave it open-ended, you're gonna run into problems. If you say, okay, everybody has to have a tap, no matter what, then you run into, problem like he had just explained. You're gonna have to get into specifics then, or figure out what kind of language you can realistically use to say, hey, we get to decide with each different one. That's our authority, and you're gonna get clobbered. You and your predecessors or your people coming after you are gonna get clobbered when one gets treated one way, another gets treated another.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood when you said it was money.
Go
I thought you
ahead.
were going to make money off the taps. He's exactly right. You wanna make money off water, and anybody renting their property is gonna want a separate tap, because they're not gonna be responsible for somebody else's irresponsible use of water.
Well, and easy to break it down is there's a classification. Is it for rental, or is it for family member?
Correct.
And it's kind of like on the assembly ground. They have different regulations, I've been told, for rental units. Greg, no more, they have separate, or have had separate issues come up over the years, and I think more and more rentals are over there, aren't they, Greg, in the off-season?
Yes.
Yeah, who's gonna police that, Dean? I mean, once they get it set up, nobody's gonna be policing that.
Well, I guess you're gonna pursue the occupancy tax, and
If they're on an honor program, I guess they'll pay their.
well, it's no different than the motels right now. They're on the honor system on your occupancy tax.
So is
They're on a
assembly.
little bigger radar though.
Yeah.
What about the power? I mean, wouldn't the power company require a different meter on there?
I think Greg can answer that. It's gonna depend on the load and what your current capacity is, I think, on the service area, Greg.
That's correct. So it really depends on what the size service is on the main structure that can supply power to your secondary structure. Saying that, one option might be, just base the second meter on how large the second dwelling is. Set a size, square footage, size limit on that dwelling. Anything above that requires a separate meter.
We set a size limit. What was that? Was that 800 square feet?
I think so.
I mean, we've made it a little building.
And coverage of the lot.
Which means we're gonna have maybe one bath, one kitchen max. So we've got two issues here. I think we came to agreement on the first, and I'm gonna take two votes on this. So the first vote we're gonna take is, and I'll ask for y'all to put it forward, is on the ADU location. That it can be in the side and the back, but if circumstances dictate, they can go to the BZA for reconsideration, correct? And I hear ayes on that. Who are in favor of that?
We need a motion in a second.
Do we on two of them? Okay. Motion,
I make a motion to develop, to go back to the commission for the ADAs to be allowed to be in the back on both sides, and if it's in the front, to go back in front of the BZA.
second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, check that off. We're looking for a motion to vote on metering the separate building. Do we require a new meter for the ADU, or can you come off your existing meter? I think that's about as simple as I can put that. Do we need to expand that language any?
You said you had the square footage already in place?
800,
I think that's reasonable.
yes.
In the previous that we sent out, did you find one way or the other?
In the previous ADU ordinance, there was nothing about a separate water meter.
It was mute, didn't say anything about a meter?
Where'd that come from? It keeps coming up.
The city council, I think, during brought it up.
City council, that's right. That's right. City council did it.
Is there a problem?
We'll let you know. All right, are we in a position to take a motion to vote on that? Can I hear a motion, please?
I move that any separate ADU, has its separate water meter.
Second.
Percent.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say again?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, can we clarify her motion, please?
Sure, absolutely.
That any separate unit ADU have its own water meter, separate water meter.
A dedicated water meter.
And again, I want to go back to the square footage. In my mind, anything above 800 square feet, what's already, or you
An
say?
ADU cannot have more than 800 square feet.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
And you can have an ADU that's attached or a detached ADU. So that's why it's the separate ADU that we're talking about.
Motion on the floor is to have a separate meter.
Yes.
I'll second. Again.
Okay, I'm gonna clarify it one more time. An ADU, which cannot exceed 800 feet, will be required to have a new water meter. Correct?
Detached or attached, or both?
Just detached.
Detached.
Just detached, clearly, okay. Let's have a roll call vote on this, okay? Let's go with Richard.
Yes.
Dan Sargent,
Yes.
Katie Trahan,
Yes.
Greg Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Maloof,
Yes.
it's unanimous. Okay.
And now this goes to the council.
Yes, and I'll just get those minutes.
We don't have to talk about this anymore.
No.
All right, new business. I believe new business, wow. Zoning ordinance amendment regarding site plan submissions, that was briefly discussed with Nate, and he's going to do it again next time. He's not,
This is separate.
No.
is it? Okay, thank you for correcting me.
This is what we discussed in the January workshop, where we were going to require more time, for site plans to be submitted. So right now it stands as 14 calendar days. We talked about amending it to 30 calendar days. And if you look on page 40 and 41 of your packet, I put the amended sections and I bolded the parts that were changing. So I did make a change, okay, I'll just go by line by line. Section 1, amend the language in section 1005, site plan submission staff review. This is where we've changed 14 calendar days to 30 calendar days.
Correct.
I've also deleted on the day of the planning commission meeting, the applicant or his representative shall bring 5 copies of the revised site plan or more if requested by planning staff. That was from, that typically hasn't happened. Because it's all done electronically now. So then in section 2, amend section 1006, site plan review and approval by planning commission, down where it says D table. If you tabled a site plan, before it said, once tabled, a site plan may not be revised. If a site plan requires revisions, it is suggested that the applicant withdraw the site plan and resubmit once corrections have been made. I added resubmittals of site plans without significant changes can be submitted 14 days prior to the following planning commission meeting.
Makes sense.
Those are the 2 major changes that we've talked about, and then
Item C under 106, where you highlighted.
that was highlighted in your zoning ordinance. That wasn't mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's our job to approve that and kick it to the council for first and second readings, is that correct?
Yeah.
Motion to accept as written,
I'll make the motion.
second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. Oh, here we are, the comprehensive land use plan that Nate was going to discuss. We're going to add that to the next workshop?
Yes, or the next meeting in March. I'm trying to get together a sample RFQ from the town of Walden, who has a great general plan.
Yeah.
And we can amend it to make it something Monteagle would wanna.
I don't mind helping other people somewhere. All right. Electric vehicle charging station ordinance discussion. This is being driven by Tesla.
So on the special called February 15th meeting next week, there is a site plan coming before you for 12 Tesla charging stations. And a lot of things are up in the air because we don't have an electric vehicle charging station, and no one in this region has something like that. And you could make a case that an addition to a property like that would require a site plan so that you could request, landscaping changes as required in your zoning ordinance. Or you could consider electric vehicles to be not an addition to the building. So, because this is so new, these 12 charging stations are coming before you with a site plan, but it will be up to the planning commission to request what you want of them.
So I think the site plan is probably a necessary evil for this, because with the pig, we need to look at their parking and their traffic flow, correct?
Yes, yes. So, but then when it comes to the side yard setbacks or any landscaping.
Is there any reason why the city would pull a building permit? Wouldn't it just be an electrical permit pulled in that Squatchy Valley?
I'm not sure beyond that point.
Right.
I just know about the planning commission reviewing this.
Well, what's the next step on this, do you think?
So I've been working with, well, I haven't started on it yet. I'd like to pull some examples of maybe some electric vehicles, ordinances in other parts of the country. But I guess I wanted to bring it up so that we could have a discussion of what you would want to see from electric vehicles.
And there's 10 or 12 stations down in Kimball, right next to the Cracker Barrel, that big huge parking lot there. So you might want to talk to Marion County and see what they had to do or what they went through to get those stations to allow this.
It's a Tesla system.
I believe it is.
It looks pretty straightforward on the drawing. I mean, it seems like it's just more of an electrical thing that is gonna occupy X number of parking spots. I can't see that it would require any landscaping. I mean, maybe some parking blocks. mean, what are you gonna put up? It's gonna be a little charging station. I think that the lack of knowledge of what really this contains is hampering us to really figure out how to approach it. It's gonna have its own transformer probably, with the amount of wattage that it's gonna have to achieve. It's gonna be a lot of electrical. Is that gonna be underground for
Mostly.
perhaps, and just have it stubbed up and you utilize the support for the station per parking spot. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns to it. I'm not against it, but I mean,
I guess I'm asking you guys what you think about, what kind of requirements would you wanna put on electric charging?
For the next one, like if somebody else wanted to come in and put one.
For now, there's not any I mean, it would be up to you. This is an opportunity where, you know, they are required a site plan. You could require landscaping of them.
they presented a site plan though, right?
Right, but they didn't include like the 10-foot side setback or the landscaping requirements. This is an opportunity, you know, if this is in addition to the property, you could request those changes of the developer.
We're not really talking about the single acre property, right? We're talking about the next one.
Right.
Right, you're right. I mean, no, you could still, it's up to interpretation right now.
But in general, we're talking about the next one that we do put in.
Yes, but, yeah, I mean, you could do that with the Piggly Wiggly one too.
It's gonna be a learning curve, I think we'll come away much
Commissioner,
better.
let me give you something to think about. So, I have worked on a couple of these, EV charging stations. And what you're gonna see is, you're gonna see, level 1 and level 2 charging stations proposed to us. Level 1 would be a voltage range between 120 208, which is a long-term charge, meaning probably overnight, something you would see in a motel, hotel application. And level 2 is supported by 277 480 volts, which is more rapid charge. Where I think we will have some challenges is, depending on the voltage that's proposed to these EV stations, it's gonna require overnight parking in some of these areas. I tried to take a quick look in the ordinances to see if there's overnight parking challenges, and the only thing I could find is like camping or something along those lines. But that will create a challenge for us as we start moving.
I think these Teslas are the level 2 quick charge.
Yeah, all that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think.
If I may-
Learning curve here, and we'll go through it with Tesla and come up with ideas on how we want to control it a little bit.
Well, I think we should look at what's happened down at Kimball. You have to back out of that space. They did not provide a drive-through type scenario. We may or may not want to do a drive-through if there's a road right there and forget the landscaping. It's as much traffic flow and safety, which I've discussed in the past, as well as anything. So if you want to drive through, then you don't need landscaping, just pull on through and take a right and go to the highway. Because I understand it's on the right side of the parking lot?
Yes, so I don't.
And you were
they
going
can
to-
Pull through because they have rubber stoppers at the end of the.
It's a back out.
Presently.
Yeah.
Well,
Pull through would be a safety issue too with the actual boxes, the actual units. Much easier to.
okay, well, the only thing is you're backing into a slightly smaller parking area than Kimball. And then you're also going to check the number of parking spaces vis-a-vis the square footage of Piggly Wiggly?
They did match the grocery store space. There's unoccupied building space.
Right.
I didn't count that in the parking space requirements. And I can show you those numbers as well.
No, I believe your work. It's just, why don't we count the vacant store with the idea that one day it may be occupied?
That's true, you could make a case for that. I could send you those numbers just so you have that when they come before you next week. And you could make that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on that? Persons having business tonight? Mr. Lay.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
That's my friend, Mr. Blues, that point of information, does this one coming up, y'all have jurisdiction over it as far as turning it down, the site plan?
Wait, say that again?
But on this charging station, do y'all have, are you saying y'all can turn this one down because of regulations you don't have?
So because it is an addition to the property, it's required a site plan, and with every new site plan that comes before the Monteagle Planning Commission, you can require all the things, all the components, all the landscaping components, and so you could deny it on the basis that they don't have that.
And that's TCA code, or is that just?
That's Monteagle zoning ordinance, it's written in their site plan, and,
And where's that at in the zone?
when we're in defining what requires a site. But, so the case that can be made is that you could consider the electric vehicle charging station to not be a redevelopment of the property. So you could make a case for both.
And it used to state, I believe, that, the planning commission may require a site plan on certain.
Yes,
versions. Yeah,
we've
so it's
seen
kind of,
that it's
that's a
now
matter of interpretation. of what-
standard that it.
Okay, well, anyway, I don't care, I'm not gonna have a test list, I don't care. What I wanted to ask you guys to consider, discuss and think about later on in workshop, or I guess workshop, is to consider, developing a survey form, and send out to the people that come before you, like a kind of how we do deal, just like the engineers or the people from, Joe Lester, and really I think it ought to be even on building permits and stuff, to get feedback about where there might be bumps in the road. And because some of this stuff is 8 months old or a year old, and there's some of it, was 3 months old. And so where are the problems that you guys are dealing with in the timeline?
An exit survey, so to speak.
Yes, and is there things that you're unaware of, that's causing undue delays and costs to the developers, regardless of what that development is, whether you're for it or against it or whatever, but it just seems like, and I think you guys do a great job, but how do you know you're doing a great job? What data do you have to back you up? Your wife or your husband, or, so I'd like for y'all to consider, I don't know if other places do that or not, but I think if you do it, it needs to be a fair reply. It doesn't need to, or a fair survey to get honest feedback and not create something due to how the question is phrased that is gonna slant what the answer is. And I think that would be real simple to develop, and you may be pleasantly surprised when you get those back, or you may just be disappointed, or there may be a mixture. And some of it may be justified, and some of it, the city, and I'm not necessarily saying planning commission, city council through their ordinances, or whatever the hang up is, if there is one, you can identify where the problem is, and then it's much easier than finding a solution instead of just, throwing a rock at it and hoping you hit it.
Right.
So I would request that you guys take that under consideration, hopefully for the betterment of our town.
Duly considered, yes.
So Dan, you
Thank you.
volunteered to develop a survey for us, so we have something to go from?
It probably, if you can get Nate to work with me on it.
Mr. Lane,
Yeah.
is it to be given at the end of each session or at the end of the granting or refusal of the submission?
Well, I would assume you gotta do it at the end. But I guess you throw it all out on the table and discuss,
I'm just thinking to clock the progress.
I
And
listen to this,
yeah.
I've been up here on projects, and I think, how do we know how well we're doing it?
Thank you.
And you go home and mirror on the wall, and you've done a great job.
That could be an annual review, yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, to me,
Thank
that would be
you, that's a
helpful.
good idea.
Thank you.
Other business in front of the commission from anyone?
What was the decision on the charging? Why was it even brought up? Did you guys have to decide on anything? Did you not have to decide on it? Why was it even discussed?
You'll be having a site plan with electric vehicle charging stations come before you next week.
Yeah.
So this will come up again, but was asking for any direction in.
Well, Right, because they don't need to have water and sewer, you know, they're just, we need to simplify it the best we can.
They can't have landscaping, if it's right there on the side of the parking lot, you're gonna dig up pavement, plant a tree.
If it's the next location, you may want
Yeah,
landscaping,
but I'm just
so I
saying
would
right
take it
there.
out.
So it's a learning curve for us, that's what we're doing, we're trying to get a little bit ahead of it for a change. Okay. Other issues, discussions? Thank you all very much.
So,
Move for adjournment, do I have a
to
motion?
clarify on the tide, so you need to take another vote at the next planning commission meeting in March. State law says that within 60 days you have to approve or deny preliminary plats.
Okay,
And so it doesn't specify in your subregs or in state law what to do if there's a tie. So that's why I'm assuming that it just goes before the March meeting.
okay.
That'll give you time to get your comments that you were.
Right, exactly.
Regarding the traffic study, is that right? Were there any other comments that needed to be addressed?
I want comments on our 3-3 vote. I want to know what the common ground is that we can work forward on. And you said sunshine law, keep you in the loop, and I have no problem with that, but I still want to email, since we have 30 days, my commissioners, and get just brief statement from each of them, what we think we can do to make this
We
work.
send them to Ed, or we send them to
I
you?
think that it'd be better, if they were sent to me. And I would consolidate all of them, but, yeah.
I have no problem with that. I'll compile them and send them to you.
Okay,
Is that public
well, so
record?
I'm saying
always
legally,
public record.
sunshine law, that would be a discussion.
Right.
Rather than distribution of information, so that's why I
So
said.
you're saying we should send them to you?
Yes, I'm
You
saying that,
compile
I'm
them and
saying
send
send them
back
to
Ed.
him, so.
I know what she said.
That's what I wanna do.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?